How's that for an opening sound?
That's nice.
Yeah. So we are back with another episode of the Construction Mentor podcast. This is not an ad. I don't run ads, so I'm not even going to share what I'm drinking here. But I did just crack open an energy drink. How apropos for a construction podcast. This is the Construction Mentor podcast. What are we here to do? We're here to promote the construction industry as the place to be. Whatever your dream life looks like, whatever the car is, whatever the vacations look like, whatever the house looks like, it's all attainable in the construction industry. To do that, we like to bring people in to share their career, share what they do, how they got there, and where they're going. If you're interested in what I do construction management. I worked my way out of the trades a long time ago. I was digging holes, scrubbing toilets, sweeping floors. I never actually personally picked up a skilled trade myself, although I am a licensed HVAC contractor, so you can figure that out. Smart enough to pass the test, I guess. But I do like to bring people in to talk about their skills. So my skill, construction project management. If you're interested in that, go check out the link in the bio. There's some free videos there. It explains what that is. It explains what the day in the life is like, how much money you can make at every stage in your career, and then how to get started. And if you're interested in becoming an electrician, then this might be the episode for you. Because today we have my friend Patrick on here. This is our second time trying to record this podcast because it didn't work out so well because he was traveling. And I don't think a lot of people realize that there is a market to travel, which has all kinds of implications for your career and especially what you can make and what type of things you work on. So with that, Patrick, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, Ike. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
And so you're from the Michigan area. Where were you and why were you there?
Yeah, so I'm from Southwest Michigan, born and raised. But I was down in Arkansas in a small town called Green Forest. Um,
Hmm.
it's like an hour south of Branson, Missouri, kind of. Uh,
And
I
the
was
only
down
reason you'd know
there.
where Branson was is if you were gambling or something, right?
Actually, my grandparents, because it's an old person's town, and they go there with their friends and vacation. I don't know,
Yeah.
watch shows or whatever. But yeah. So I was down there doing some wind tower work. The electrical contractor I work for, we do a lot of cable testing, breaker testing, relay testing, all that stuff, and we have contacts with this contractor, and they called us and asked if we'd come out and test the medium voltage cables, the switch gears, some of the relays, just make sure everything was good to go before they did the final walkdowns and whatnot to turn towers on.
And what exactly, when we say wind tower, just so everybody's clear, what are those?
The big 400-foot tall white things with propellers on them that everybody seems to think are an eyesore. You'll see them a lot in Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, pretty much where there's a bunch of open fields.
Yeah, basically trying to generate energy, right?
Yep. Yep.
There's a lot of opinions about that and what they do and how much energy and they save and how good they are for the environment. And if you've seen Landman, that's a pretty good soliloquy on what Billy Bob Thornton's character feels about those. But, I think it's really interesting because especially when it comes to, the idea of a tradesperson traveling, for work, you're going to see it more and more prevalently. And a lot of it's going to, number one, revolve around energy, but number two, revolve around all these data centers, all these things that you keep hearing about. You know, you have the Gary Vanderchuck and you have Patrick Bet David and even, Trump. Everyone's always talking about, oh, the demand and all these things, and we don't have enough people. But yeah, we don't have enough people, but we also don't have enough people in Greenville, Arkansas, and we don't have enough people in Des Moines, Iowa, and nor are you going to get people to stay there either. So the ability to travel is going to be there, and when you travel, there's pay there too. So Patrick, if you're comfortable, I mean, I know you're a union guy, and we're going to talk about all those things. Maybe you don't have to share your salary, but can you share what the average or the union package looks like for your area, and then what a per diem to travel on top of that looks like?
Yeah, so I'm out of 153, local 153. It's South Bend, Indiana. our scale is 46 on the check. I believe the total package is 70. It's somewhere around 70, I think. I don't have it pulled up right now.
So
But
yeah, so the straight time, just what's in the paycheck is $92,000 a year. That's before overtime, and then if you're in the 70s, we'll just say 70 something. That's another $30,000 in benefits. So that's health, that's a pension, that's retirement, investment funds, whatever that package looks like. In other words, people. Here's what people don't understand, especially in my comment section, and they're so stupid, but there's supplemental benefits with somebody like a Patrick, right? Supplemental, anytime you have supplemental, that's adding on top of. So he gets $92,000 before overtime in the paycheck. And then he gets another $30 an hour. So another $60,000 contributed to all of those things that we said. The main difference is that if you go to an office job and you have a salary, those things are taken out of your paycheck, not added on top of. So, the other thing that we alluded to was, there's a cost and a benefit to travel. So what does that look like?
well, the biggest cost, at least personally, is that you're not home. You know, for a guy like myself, I don't have a wife or kids, so it's not that difficult for me to be gone.
Yeah. If it's ideal for anybody, it's ideal for you because you're not
Right,
responsible for anyone.
right. It is a little irritating paying my mortgage basically to store my life because a storage
Yeah.
unit would be way cheaper.
Yeah.
But you know, but the benefits, I mean, we get per diem. I mean, we don't go out of town for straight time. It's always overtime. You're always working 10s, 12s, 6, 7 days a week. Um, our per diem goes off the government rate. So whatever the government standard for lodging and food is for that area is what we get for per diem. I know some unions and some shops have like a rate that they'll pay that's a little different than that or whatever. But our shop just uses the GSA rated per diem. So you can get a little extra that way too, especially if you room with somebody, split a hotel or whatnot.
So are you saying even if it's just Monday through Friday, normal hours, you're getting time and a half? Is that what you're
No, no,
saying?
no, no. No, we get it's the 8 straight, so 8 hours of regular time, then anything after that's time and a half. But we don't go work 8 hours out of town. It's always 10 or 12 or whatever. Um and
Yeah. So
sometimes
in that case, you're going from the 46 to 67 if it's time and a half, and if it's a Sunday, you work this past Sunday, that's double time, right? So
mhm,
you're making 92 in
yep.
the paycheck. So I mean, you're over 100 grand a year, on a regular year, like pretty easily. Now, what's interesting that you said about the per diem, again, in a per diem, it's a fancy word, but it basically just means anytime you have to travel or there's an extra expected expense, companies will give you money to pay for that stuff. Oftentimes, for construction management, it can be $4,500 a month or 5 grand a month or, whatever that may be. And whether or not there is a government rate that people should pay or even a union wage, that's a minimum, right? So Patrick could, and that's why I don't want to like show all of his cards, but his shop, although the union rate in South Bend, Indiana is 46 an hour, his shop could pay him 50. His shop could pay him 55. They can pay whatever they want. That's just a minimum wage.
Yeah. We they have to pay the 46. That's just what our journeyman scale is. But if a certain shop wants a guy bad enough, like if a certain contractor wanted me bad enough, I could go in and say, well, this is what I'm looking for, and you can negotiate from there and whatever, maybe get a week's paid vacation or up the rate or both or whatever.
Yeah, and I think from the business owner perspective, if they do go above and beyond, usually they pass that off to the client. Like especially if it's a service type project or you want to give them an extra per diem or people might not want to go to Greenville, Arkansas. So they might look at the client and say, hey, man, I'll come, but I got to give my guys, a little extra carrot here.
Yep.
so
Yep.
so they can do that too. And it definitely gets passed off to the client. And then unfortunately, or fortunately, clients will pay for it because they need it, right? This is heavy, heavy infrastructure. So that it has to work and it has to run. But let's take a step back, to little Patrick. What was, before, by the way, if you're on audio, we just got a pair of excellent mustaches on the screen right now. Just some real good looking dudes right here. Um, what was before you had the mustache? What was it like, Patrick, growing up in the southeast or southwest Michigan area?
West Michigan was, I don't know. I haven't really known anything but this place. I grew up with Lake Michigan, like a 12-minute drive from the house. So, we used to go to the beach all the time, play beach volleyball, hang out, whatever. I was a pretty, I'd say, normal kid, I think. I didn't really get into anything crazy. Just went to regular public schools, hung out with friends after school like normal kids do. I don't know what kids do nowadays because times are different, but
Neither do I.
we used to ride our bikes until it was dark. Then mom gave us a walkie-talkie, and when she'd call for dinner, we had to come home. However far that walkie-talkie reach was as far as she'd let us go, but still. Um, yeah, I just kind of grew up. It's like a town of 10,000 people, not too big, but not small. Um, most of
And
my
I,
family was
I
around
remember,
here.
I remember from our first conversation or attempt at the conversation, pretty much grew up in a blue
Yep.
collar environment, right? Can you talk about that? Like, what were the adults and usually the men doing around you?
Yeah, so my dad is in tool and die. He was a CNC machinist. Uh, and I didn't, as a kid, I didn't really know what he did. He took us to the shop every once in a while, but I didn't really, I was like, oh, cool, big machine thing that stamps metal. But that was kind of all I knew. My uncle and grandfather were both in the electricians union that I am now part of. Um, again, I don't know if I wasn't paying attention or just a lack of awareness to what the guys in the family did. I knew that they did stuff with their hands. I knew they weren't in the office, but I didn't really pry and ask and whatever. We were always doing our own, if somebody needed a roof put on the house, all the guys in the family were doing that. If somebody's car was broke down, all the guys in the family got together at grandpa's because he had the big shop. We were all working on that stuff with our hands. So I grew up using my hands, but not really, I don't know, not paying attention, I guess, to what the men in the family did as far as actual jobs. I just knew that they could do all of this stuff when it was
That's just
needed.
that's just what men did.
Yeah.
Just what it meant to be a man. So were you like would you call yourself a bookworm? Were you like an all scholastic kid? What were you
Oh
like,
no.
and what was the future looking like for you? Was the path always college? Was it never college because nobody else had a college degree around you?
All right. So I was not a bookworm. I hated school. I pretty much C's get degrees, I pretty much just maintained enough to get through. Um, I didn't want to put the effort in. I didn't want to be there. I was there to hang out with friends. But in high school, I did have a mindset that I was going to go to college. I was going to go to a 4-year school and get some sort of degree. I think freshman and sophomore year, I really want to do sports broadcasting. Um, I don't know about you, but I used to wake up watching Sports Center in the morning before school. I wanted to
Two or
be
three
one of
times.
those guys. Yeah. I wanted to be one of those guys. So I was trying to figure out where to go, what to do. And then that slowly changed. Um, and kind of turned into like, no,
I don't know if you've watched Sports Center lately, but it is a far cry from Stuart Scott, Rich Eisen, Kenny Mayne. I mean, those guys were the epitome of cool and like funny and witty. And these guys now, like, I don't know if it's because I'm old and cranky. That you just kind of want to slap them around. Like they're just cringe.
Yeah, it's just it's not anything like what it used to be. Like nothing that I remember it being is what it is now.
It's
It's
like they're
all
trying too hard to be cool and to come up with sayings, and you just
mhm,
can't replicate what those other guys used to do.
cool as the underside of the pillow.
That's it. You know what I mean? Like in Booyah, like there's none of
Yep.
that. And Kenny Mayne is like just one of the funniest dudes, around. Um, anyway, that's so off topic, and I don't
Yeah.
want to sound like too much of a crusty old guy, but you know, what was it about college? Like if it was C's get degrees and you just did what you had to do to get by and to graduate in high school, what pushed you to college? It just
Yeah.
did it just make sense, or was somebody telling you?
No, what I remember is the school counselors at high school. It's like every year at the beginning of the year, you'd go talk to them or whatever, and they were always just like, "Hey, you're in high school now. You need to start thinking about where you want to go to college, what you want to do, this, that, and the other." And that's all I really remember hearing. I don't remember talks about trade schools as far as the high school went. Um, and my family didn't push me. They were just kind of like, we want you to make your own decisions and do what you think is going to be best for you. Like, we don't care as long as you're happy, basically. Uh, so I actually didn't go to college right after high school. I left this out of the first attempt at this podcast. But I spent a year as a missionary straight out of high school.
What?
Yeah.
How'd you
Yeah.
leave that out?
So,
what? Where?
well,
Where'd you go? What'd you do?
because I'm dude, I'm a far cry from that kid that I was back then. But I grew up in the church, Wednesday, Sunday morning, Sunday night, whatever, all that stuff. And some revival ministries group always came to our church. And senior year of high school, I was playing guitar in the worship team and singing. And they came to the church, and I was doing co-op, so I was only working I was only going to school for like 3 hours a day, and then I was supposed to work like, I don't know, 25 hours a week or something at the grocery store job I had. And I had a day off, and my youth pastor called and was like, "Hey, dude, I got some of the guys from the group here. They leave tomorrow, but we're going to lunch. You want to go?" So I went, and they had no idea really who I was other than they'd seen me all week. They didn't know that I played guitar or that I sang on the worship team, whatever, or that I sang. Dude, I was in choir from 5th grade to like 10th grade, and I only quit because the music teacher hated me and I hated her. But anyways, I went to lunch and he's like, "Yeah, Pat, he sings and plays guitar." And one of the guys was like, "What? We're looking for more people for next year," and immediately called the guy that ran the group and set up a tryout without even like asking me. So I showed up the next morning, and this guy and his wife were there, and she played a couple notes on the piano to see if I could read music and match the tones and pitches and all that stuff. And they called like 2 months later and said, "Hey, if you want to be part of the worship team or the revival ministries group, you're in." And I was kind of in between on college. Like I thought I wanted to go to college, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I left and I did that for a year. I was based out of Pennsylvania.
So
You
were you
know,
just in Pennsylvania, or were you like traveling
no,
around?
so it was based out of the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area. They've got a Bible camp there with cabins and whatnot. But we met there. I think it's like the pretty much like right before normal school would start. We got together and just worked for like 2 weeks straight on learning all these songs and whatnot, and meeting all of the people. There was 20, I think there was 24 of us. There was like 10 guys and 14 girls or something. Um, and then we left. We were in New York for a while, North Carolina, West Virginia, Maryland, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois. Um, I think
So before
that's
you were a
about it.
traveling electrician, you were a traveling missionary
Yeah.
singing about God and spreading the good word.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. It
So then you went to college and you wanted to be
yep.
Stuart Scott. Didn't
Yep.
work out, you
Nope.
know, and I already know this, but you didn't complete college, right?
Correct. Correct.
Talk to me about, like, were all of your friends going to college, and when you stopped, like, what made you stop, and what did everybody think about that?
Yeah, so most of my friends were off at college. Some of them were at the local community college which is where I ended up going when I came back from the missionary thing. Just because it was cheaper and the first 2 years are basically prereqs anyways for college. So I could sleep at home at mom and dad's and pay a lot less for college doing it this way. Um, I most of my friends went to like Western Michigan or something like that. Um, at that time, I don't really speak to many of them anymore. We all kind of grew up and went our separate ways as adults do. But yeah, dude, I went to college, thought I wanted to do sports broadcasting, changed my mind to athletic training, and sat through a year and a half of classes and realized I couldn't make money doing that unless I spent a lot more time in school and specialized basically, whether it be like a foot doctor or just a regular doctor or whatever. The physical therapy athletic training portion wasn't going to cut it. So I told my parents I was going to quit, and they were like, well, you either need to get a full-time job or you need to go to college. Like, just keep going. Well, I quit. I found a full-time job that didn't pay the bills. I moved out of my parents' house. It wasn't, I mean, it was paying the bills, but barely. And then that's kind of when I realized I needed a change. I had to do something different. I don't want to say I hit rock bottom, but I kind of
That's
was
relative.
in a spot.
Everybody's got their rock bottom, I think it's interesting that your family was kinda hands off, right? And you were kinda pushed to college just arbitrarily, and what I think a lot of people don't realize, like, I remember when I was going to college, people saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm going for sports management, and I'm going for, to be an athletic trainer, or I'm going to do this or that," and it's like, there was never a conversation about how many of those jobs were available, number 1.
Nope,
Like, I mean, name your
never.
sports team. There's only so many GMs. There's only like 120, of the big 4 professional sports leagues, right? There's only
Right.
120 teams with 120 GMs. So, like, there's not a tremendous opportunity there. And then even when you think that you're going into something that sounds good, like being an athletic trainer, okay, like, what does that look like? Again, there's a lot of people that make a lot of money, but then there's the majority of them, which is like the high school athletic trainer that doesn't make a lot of money, that's probably making less money than the history teacher's even making, right? And if you're wasting 4 years and you're going into 40 to even a few $100,000 in debt, it's like, whoa, okay. So that's not worth it. Um, you know, you eventually came to the conclusion, like, okay, electrician, and that obviously came from your grandfather and your uncle. Your dad was a tool and die guy. That's not what we really talk about in this podcast, but for everyone who doesn't know what tool and die means, it's basically like a manufacturer or like a factory setting, right? I definitely think that there's more money in construction. So, talk to me about the conversation, where your family was like, "Hey, why don't you think about becoming an electrician?" Or you said, "Hey, talk
Yeah.
to me about being an electrician."
Yeah, so I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was somewhere around 2014. I was with my dad and my grandpa. We were over at my grandparents' house, and the three of us were kind of in the garage. And I can't remember if my uncle was there or not either. But I was just like, guys, I need help. Like, I don't know what to do, but what I'm doing with work is not. It's not my career. It's not my future. It's just kind of a job to get me by. I got to figure something out. And, both my dad and grandpa were just like, well, I'm a tool maker. I'm an electrician. Like, have you ever thought about the trades? You don't have to be one of those. You could be a plumber, HVAC, whatever, iron worker, anything. But you do use your hands a lot better than you study in books. Oh, maybe think about that. And I was like, man, I haven't thought about that, but that's something to think about. I don't know. It was like a week later. I still hadn't made any decisions on work or whatnot. And I showed up at my house, and my grandpa had an application for the electrician's apprenticeship. And he's like, I was down there for a retiree's breakfast. So I just grabbed this and, do what you want with it. But I filled it out and turned it in, and they called me for an interview and the testing process and all that stuff.
So I want to talk about, what you were making at that time, because obviously there was a transition where you weren't making a lot of money, you were in a tough spot. Then you had to take out a first year apprentice wage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into that. But before you did that, you had to actually get in. And there's a lot of conversations about getting into the union. I think that when it came to me, I had an advantage when I was growing up because, like you, everybody, that's what they did. Everybody's dad either owned a residential company or a small company, or, everyone in my family was a pipe fitter or an elevator guy. Like, the process to become that was just very apparent to me. And if I didn't, then if I didn't know it, I had people to hold my hand. Like, you got to sign up at a certain time of year. Like in January, the pipe fitters only take signups in January, right? You can only apply in the month of January, and then you got to wait another year.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew the process, and I think that there's a huge advantage there. So when a lot of people talk about like nepotism or you got to know somebody, I think that I don't think that it's as true as it was 30 years ago, but I think a lot of that is
Right.
just that you have the advantage of like somebody can walk you through that process. Talk about that process for you. What was it like when you applied? And people people don't realize you got to interview, you got to test. What was that like?
Yeah. So I went and turned an application in, and I think they called me a couple weeks later and said, all right, this is the test date. Come down, um, run through this aptitude test thing, which bothered me because, like I said earlier, C's get degrees, man. I wasn't, I didn't put the effort in. I don't want to say that I'm stupid, but I just didn't put the effort in that I should have. So I went down, took the test, felt like I did mediocre on it. Um, Apparently, according to their grading scale or what they were looking for, I was like right in the wheelhouse. So I got called in for an interview, had to go back down, sit down in front of, I think it was eight people on the committee, whether it's some of the union shop owners or just elder people who'd been around in senior positions at the shop or shops. And you sit down, it's kind of intimidating. Even I was 24. Yeah, 20. Yeah, 24. Even then, it was still kind of intimidating walking in there. I don't know anybody. I don't know what's going to be asked. And you just sit down, and it's a bunch of people just looking at you, staring at you, and you're like, oh boy. And they're like, all right, we've all got one question apiece, we're all going to ask you one, and you're going to answer it. Okay. Most of the stuff was simple. How would you handle? You're running a crew, and two guys start fighting, arguing back and forth. What would you do? Uh, do you think you would be able to run a crew of 10 guys? And why do you think that? Stuff like that. I did have, obviously, my grandpa and uncle were in the same union, different last names. So I thought that I wouldn't have to worry about the whole family ties thing because it was still talked about, guys through the apprenticeship still talked about, oh, you got in because your dad was in, or so and so knew your grandpa, or whatever. And I didn't want that. I didn't want any ties to it. Not that I was ashamed of my family. I just didn't want to deal with that, whatever. Sure enough, the last guy to ask me a question was like best friends with my grandpa and knew me.
Yeah,
And
you know.
he said something about it, and then everybody else was like, "Oh, you have a family member in the trade," and the guy's like, "Well, actually, he has like two family members in the trade," but I was like, "Ah, dang it, man." But yeah, I went through that, left, felt pretty confident because I thought I answered everything. I answered it to the best of my abilities, and I was like, "Oh, I think I did good." I was pretty confident in my answers. Fine. And I went home. So like 3 weeks later, I got a call, I think.
Hmm.
Said, "Hey, school's not going to start for another, I think it was like 2 months. It was like 2 months, but some of the contractors have some school projects coming on and they need apprentices right now. And you and four other guys, we need you to go out."
Yeah, right now. Just
Yeah,
be a helper.
right
Just
now.
go do whatever. Like, you don't need an
Yeah,
education to do what we
no,
need to do. They just need bodies.
no. It kind of threw a wrench in me leaving my other job. I think I burnt a bridge, which whatever, but
Well, yeah, I mean,
it was for the best. I mean, it was for the best, right? Back then, I was like, I need to put a 2 week notice in, but
yeah, I mean, I can't say that I haven't burnt a bridge myself.
oh,
It's
yeah,
funny because I signed up for the local 537 pipe fitters in Boston, and same thing. I wanted to go through it. I didn't want anyone to know, who I was, and my father was,
yeah.
my dad's a big personality, and he's definitely one of the guys that at every union meeting he's in the front row, and he's vocal. And my dad still will fly back to, but he's retired in Florida for the last 10 years. He still flies back up to Boston to go to union meetings. He's that
Oh
guy,
yeah,
right? He's that guy.
yep.
And I interviewed with a couple guys, same thing, gave me the questions, whatever. And then the last guy just looked at my name on the resume and he's like, Eisenhower, huh? And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I had the opposite problem. There's no way that I can get away from my name because like there's not many Eisenhowers out there and it is my dad. So it is my name. Um, but I think, and he didn't even interview me. He's like, you've obviously been coached on what to say. So one of the reasons that we're here is I want to coach people to be successful in those situations. What I would say is they're just looking for you to be humble. They just want to see that you're eager to learn and that you have good work ethic. They don't want you to act like you can run a crew of 10 guys at 18 years old or with no, the wrong thing to do is to say yes. Like, oh yeah, I'm a boss, whatever. Like, don't say that. But going in there, whether it's the way you answer questions or the way you dress and you groom yourself when you go in there, what advice would you have to somebody who's, whether it's union or not, but just going into an interview process, what advice do you have for somebody?
So I don't know about dressing as far as trades go and interviews. I was always told dress for the job that you want or whatever, but I did not wear blue jeans and work boots to the interview. I dressed up, dress slack, shirt, tie, um, whatever. But I was just myself, man. You know, I answered every question that they asked me as honestly as I could. I didn't try to lie about anything or fake anything. Um, I don't know that the interview process, as far as our local went, was like a make or break type deal. I think maybe if they were kind of questioning uh whatever your background was as far as your aptitude test, how that went, if they thought maybe you were on the edges of making it in or not, that maybe the interview did something, but I think they really just want to make sure that you weren't going to be in there BSing them. They just want to make sure that you were a real person and relatively competent. Um,
Yeah, it's almost like
in
it's yours to
in
lose. Like
everything.
as long as you don't
Yeah,
go in there acting like an asshole or or saying something completely stupid,
right.
then
Hey,
you
save
then
that for once you get in.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, get in first. Um so talk to and I think you're right. I don't think that you necessarily have to wear a shirt and tie, but I would. Like, I always think that if you err towards the side of a bit better presentation, especially in the union situations, you're representing a body of people and they, at minimum, although, you're never going to wear a shirt and tie to work to be an electrician, it shows that you care. It shows that you care about the way you present yourself and you're trying to at least give off the right impression. And when you're in a union, when you're representing a certain product and a certain body of people, that's what they need. They need people that care about the brand, whether it's ABC Electrician or 123 Electrician, whatever the contractor is. There is a brand of that union hall that they want to make sure that somebody's going to be able to uphold. And just caring goes a long way, and that's a good way to communicate that. And obviously, like, don't look like you rolled out of a dumpster. So, like, put the suit on, yes, but shave. You can have a
Yeah,
beard or something.
trim
But
the beard, take a shower,
again, just
put some deodorant on.
look like you care, comb your
Yeah,
hair, like that type of deal, right? Cut your fingernails, all those types of things. So, talk to me. A lot of people, they talk about transitioning or going in, and obviously there's no college debt, and you're not paying, right? You're earning while you're learning. They say, oh, well, you don't make that right away, and it takes a long time to make any good money. Why don't you talk about what you make as an apprentice and how that, kind of increases until you J out or journey out, as they say.
yeah, yeah. So when I left the warehouse job I had, I was making 13.25 an hour, I believe. And first year apprenticeship at the time was you started out, I want to say the first 6 months you started out at like 45% of journeyman's wages. So I think at the time our local was around $34 an hour.
Yeah, so
So
maybe 15,
I don't,
16 bucks. So you got maybe
yeah,
like a $2 to $3 raise.
yeah, I can't remember. It was pretty close to what I left at the other job, because I remember being like, man, this sucks. I've already done this. I can do this another year. And then every year after that, it goes up 10%. So like second year is like 55, third year's 65, fourth year's 75. I think fifth year's like 85. And then when you top out or J out, whatever, then you get the other 15% of that, which is a nice.
So that's, if I put that in today's dollars, and this is all public information. If you want to challenge what Patrick is saying, you can go find this. But, you'll see the rates and you'll see the increases every year. And if you're in the apprenticeship program, it will increase again. That's a minimum wage. But
Mhm.
if it's $46 an hour, that means that you'd start probably in the low 20s. And most college grads are making somewhere in the 40,000s a year, right? The average is like 59 or 60,000. That means that around half of people make less than that. So to start there and have guaranteed wage increases, knowing that if you start at $20, the next year you're going to go up to $24 and then $28 and then $32 and $36. After 5 years, you're going to be making $46 an hour instead of going and fighting in begging your employer to give you. By the way, most employers, a 3% raise is the expectation, and if you get a 5% raise, you should be like kissing the ground that they walk on, right? So the fact that you're getting a 10% raise and then a 15% raise guaranteed on a guaranteed timeline, you can at least plan your life. And at the end of it, you're making, $92,000 a year plus all the overtime, and we can get into the progression of Patrick's career. But if the average American is making $60,000 a year, at regardless of age, $60,000 a year in 5 years, you're going to be making 50% more than the average American, right? And that's before you any overtime, and that's not even considering your supplemental benefits. So obviously, as you said, it was the right decision, and you just had to bite the bullet for a year or two, and then it hurt less and less.
Yeah. Yeah. The first year it kind of sucked. Second year, you get that first raise, and you're like, oh, this isn't too
Sweet.
bad. Not great, but not too bad. Third year rolls around, starts feeling better and better. And yeah, it was worth it 100%, at least in my case. Because there was no way I was ever gonna get near that at the job I was previously on. Because they tried to keep me when I tried to leave. They're like, "What's it gonna take?" And I'm like, "I don't think you can do it." And I told them at that time what the top out rate was for journeyman in my local, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we can't do that."
Yeah, no.
And I'm like, "Well, you
Yeah,
got
no.
like, if you can do it within like 4 years instead of five, I think about it." And they're like, "Oh no, no, no." So I was like, all right, see ya. I'm
Yeah,
gone,
goodbye.
guys.
And not to mention, there's a lot of stats out there. You can go look this up, but if you invest $10,000 at 25 years old, by the time you're 65, it's going to be worth a million some odd dollars, right? And you've been contributing, again, on top of the paycheck to retirement funds for 11, 12 years now. And that's got to be worth, over six figures. And in the next 30 years, it's going to be worth, exponentially more than that.
Right.
So that's just always something to consider, right? I don't think that it's a bad investment. Like, again, to go be an apprentice and make that money with the future you have and to not be in debt to do it and the career opportunities, all those things. Talk to me about what types of projects you started working on once you journeyed out. You're doing the wind stuff now or the infrastructure stuff now where you're traveling. Um, what types of projects were you working on as you went, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, and maybe what your preferences? Like, where do you like? What
Yeah.
niche do you like?
So that's I'm not really sure. I don't know if I found it. Yet. I mean, I guess I'll try and walk through this and see if I can find it. But as an apprentice, first year was a lot of schools, man. Elementary schools, middle schools always remodel in the summertime when the kids are out. Uh, Stuff like high schools, whatever. So first year, I spent a lot of time doing that, and really just pushing a broom and handing a journeyman tools and stuff. Second year, we're close to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame uses the union, like, iron workers, pipe fitters, HVAC, electricians. They use a lot of union work out there. So they were doing some additions to the football stadium. That took like 2.5 years. So I spent like 2 years out there before I caught like the second to last layoff, because they were just axing like 70 people at a time at
For
that
a
point.
sports guy, that must have been cool to be in and around the
Oh
stadium.
yeah, man. Yeah, I got to, regardless of your opinions on the guy, I got to see Brian Kelly, as close as I am to my computer.
Yeah.
Now I tried to say hi to him, and I'll just leave that at that. But
Mm.
that was when he was the coach at Notre Dame. I was doing one of the suites up top for the athletic directors or something. I was hanging can lights. But yeah, it was cool to go. I mean, I grew up, Notre Dame's probably 45 minutes from where I grew up. So I grew up a Notre Dame fan, which a lot of people have problems with because I live in Michigan. But Notre Dame was way closer, dude. Sports,
Yeah,
to go
right.
see sports down there was way closer than driving to Ann Arbor or East Lansing. So it was really cool. I liked it. Um, but I
We're gonna
spent like
leave
two
your we're
years
gonna
there.
leave your we're gonna leave your opinion on the college football playoff out.
Yeah, I don't. That's a separate podcast.
Yeah.
That ain't this one. Uh, but yeah, I spent 2 years there just running pipe and pulling wire and typical building, hanging boxes and stuff on the aluminum studs that they were. I heard one of your podcasts. You talk about listening to all the drywall screws going in.
Oh,
You
I love
know,
it.
yeah, every day. That's all it was. Just
Yeah.
hanging the metal studs and listening to drywall screws while I'm running pipe and pulling wire 4 rooms down, trying to stay
S-
ahead.
So when you're doing that and you're on site, like I'll say this is low man on the totem pole, and this isn't a union thing or a non-union then union thing. It's a really anywhere thing. What advice do you have for somebody that's in an apprenticeship or in like a helper role? How do they create the right perception for themselves from the older guys?
Yeah, the best thing that I was told was from some old timer when I was a first year apprentice. He told me to be willing to learn from anybody, whether it be the 60-year-old journeyman or the 18-year-old CW or pre-apprentice or first year, whatever, or helper. Somebody might have a better idea or have done something that you haven't done and know how to do it better than you, and to just be willing to learn and not think that the best way every time or the only way every time. And as an apprentice, just try to think ahead, know what you and at least for us, most of the time we're paired up with a journeyman. So we're working together and you got to know, hey, we're putting lights in this room. We're running the pipe for the lights from the switch to the light to the next light, whatever. What does the journeyman need? Try to think ahead, pay attention, learn how to bend pipe. They spent like 15 minutes in class in the apprenticeship teaching us how to bend conduit, and that was a
And you
joke. I
probably
learned
spent most of your time
oh
doing that on
god,
site.
so much time on site doing that. So much time leaving bone piles of messed up pipe because I didn't do it right. Uh, but just be open minded and don't think that you're better than everybody else. I guess really. Just go in and yeah, you're gonna work. It's good. There's gonna be times that suck. You're gonna have to pick up a broom. You're gonna have to pick up the trash. You're gonna do crappy stuff, but
Hey,
that
as long as
stuff
you're not stealing at
everybody
work,
has to go through it.
as long as if you're in a union though, just as long as you're not stealing the laborer's work, you don't want to pick up too much of your stuff.
Well, yeah. If there's laborers on the job, don't steal their job. But
So once you journeyed out though, what types of project, just give some insight to some of the different types of projects you worked on, and if you find one that you'd be excited on to work again, highlight that.
yeah. So as soon as I journeyed out, as an apprentice, you can't drag up or quit, right? Like we get sent to a contractor and you're there until they say bye, basically. Now that there are ways around that. I don't know if I should say this on here, but whatever. I forced a layoff, I guess. I didn't like the contractor I was working for, and I certainly didn't like the journeyman I was working for. So basically, I got myself fired. Um, I don't recommend that. I had to go in front of the committee that
Mm,
interviewed me.
it's a
I then
it's a
had to
risk.
go in front of them again.
I've heard of multiple people doing that, and I think that this is
Uh,
if you were to create a list of union versus non-union benefits, pros and cons. I've had multiple people that I've had a low voltage electrician, good friend of mine. He had a shop that wanted to take him on as a regular electrician or a high voltage electrician, which pays more, and couldn't do it because the low voltage shop wouldn't let him go. And he had to
mhm,
write a letter and he had to complain about it, and he effectively had to get himself fired. But there's
yep,
a risk. So
yeah. Luckily, they threatened to kick me out of the program, but I don't know. Back then, that's a whole different story. But back then, my coordinator and I didn't get along, the apprenticeship coordinator. But I walked in and he's like, they know you got a mouth on you and they know that you're hot headed. So they're going to try and stir you up so that you say something stupid. They've got the paperwork filled out to boot you from the program. So don't say anything stupid.
a hot-headed
Now,
missionary, huh?
yeah, man, my life did like I fell, well, I still haven't gotten back to God, but I fell way out of it when I came back. But yeah, so I had to deal with that. Anyways, topped out, was finally able to drag up a job. So of course the first thing I did was like, I'm out, guys. I'm pulling the pin. I'm gonna go find a new job. And I left Michigan and went down to Georgia, um, around Augusta area. They were doing two new nuclear reactors down there at one of the nuke plants that had been going on for a couple years. But a couple buddies of mine that had topped out 2 years ahead of me or a year ahead of me, um, they were like, "Hey, there's work. Let's go hit the road. That's what this little yellow ticket in our pocket says we can do. So let's go do it." So we
And
went
when you
down to
do that,
Georgia.
and when you do that, are you making your rate from where you hail from, or do you have to accept the rate in the
Uh,
market you fly into?
so for that, you got to accept whatever their rate is because you're not working out of your local anymore. Now you're working what would be called book two, which is a
Right.
guest in somebody else's home, right? So you're
Right.
taking their scale. And it was a little less money, but there was per diem, and there was 3 of us renting an apartment. So we were making money, and we were away from home and experiencing a new thing, dealing with a nuclear facility and dealing with all the red rope that's attached to that. Um, so that was kind of cool. That I did that. I think it was like a month after I topped out, is when we decided to go do that. And then COVID hit, which kind of threw a wrench in quite a bit of things as far as work goes. Like there was still work, but some of it was kind of questionable. We came home from Georgia, and then I went to Iowa and worked on a data center, just running more pipe, pulling more wire. I did that a lot. I ran pipe and pulled wire. That was kind of, I told the teachers that in the apprenticeship that I didn't need to know anything because I could run pipe and pull wire my whole career and make a whole career out of it, traveling around doing it. I wasn't really wrong, but that guy's now one of my project managers, and he remembered that from 7 years ago when I
Sure, he
when I
reminded you.
told him that. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Uh, but yeah, I did that, and then came home. We had work on solar farms back here, so I went from a data center to a solar farm, and then to a gas plant, and just casino. Did a casino for a while. And finally, my buddy that topped out with me has worked with the company that I work for now. He had been working with them doing wind tower work um over in New York, and he had texted me and said, "Hey man, would you be interested in doing this if we put in a call?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm afraid of heights. It'd be cool to, I mean, it's something new. I'd like to be able to check it off, say, hey, I did that." Sure enough, a week later, they put a call in the hall, and I drugged the job I was on, went to the hall, signed the books, took the call. And now it's kind of what I do. I travel for them a lot. Him and I both do. We're both single with no kids.
And when you say drug and drag up, you just for the people, basically quit.
Yeah,
It's
just
when you
quit.
pick up
Yeah,
your stuff and leave.
yeah,
If you're on a job and something happens, you know, you don't like, or a trade is doing something stupid on site, or you're fed up with what's going on. That's what it's called. It's called dragging up. Like, all right, we're out of here. They're
yeah,
not ready for us. That's another reason. The GC's been trying to get him on site for a couple weeks, and then they get there and they run out of work, or another trade screwed something up, and we can't do our job anymore. So we're dragging up. We're out of here. See ya. Um, so I'm interested in that. It's awesome that you've been able to see different parts of the country, and you're traveling now, and you did nuclear reactors in a casino and schools, and um, what was the other one? Solar, and these are all and data centers, and these are all kind of sexy words that you kind of hear, and
mm,
they're words that, first of all, electrician out of all the trades gets people's ears perked up the most, especially the young people, and then all of those types of facilities also perk their ears up because, again, they're sexy words. So it's good to hear that you've had all that experience, right? And you can continue to branch out and see new things and kind of bolster your resume. We're coming up on time here. I'd love to hear, like, where do you see your career going? Do you always want to be in the field? Do you want to hone in on certain types of projects? Do you want to go into like a project manager role? What does that look like for you?
yeah. So I don't want to be in the field the rest of my career. Personally, I don't know if I'm fit to be a project manager or not. I know that I would be willing to give it a shot if the opportunity came up. Um,
Because of your mouth? No, is that why you
yeah.
don't think you'd be fit?
Well, yeah. I think that's got its pros and cons. Sometimes they don't need a yes man. They just think they need a yes man. Sometimes
Right.
they do need it.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I don't have much of a filter. I've
Yeah.
gotten a lot better over the years, but
That's the phrase I was going for, is usually the best
yeah,
guys in the field. They're like, I don't know if I could do that job. I don't have a filter.
yeah, yeah. No, but uh, you know, I've been lucky since I've been with this company. Yeah, I do travel a lot and done wind tower work, but I do a lot of service work too. If something blows up and they need it fixed, I'll get a call. One of the other guys will get a call, and if we need help, we'll call each other to come help. a late night blow up or whatever. And I didn't ever do that in the apprenticeship. I didn't get that experience. I only ran pipe, pulled wire. So I didn't get to go test things and figure out why this blew up or what's going on with this that's making this not run right. I never got to do that. So now the last 3 years I've been with this company, I've been able to do some of that along with the traveling. Um, and I enjoy it. I think I'd like to get into an office position in the future. I don't want to be gone from home all the time. Right now it's fine, but I would like a family at some point in time. And this job has put a strain on trying to have a relationship. I
Sure.
had one. I had one when I started with this company, and it ended because I was out of town a lot. And it's hard to explain that to somebody who's not familiar with the industry either. They don't get it. What do you mean you're gone? What do you mean you don't know when you're getting off work? What do you mean you got to work Saturday and Sunday?
I've I've had a lot, even in a management perspective. I have that conversation a lot with my wife at the beginning, not so much now. I've
Right.
elevated into a role where I'm a little more predictable, but especially when I was on site and I was, doing a power shutdown or in a high rise, right? And you got to shed the load and then you got to do whatever you're doing and then you got to bring it back on. I don't know. Right? Like, but I can't leave it like this. Like, I can't just leave at
Right.
3 o'clock. Right.
Right.
And yeah, the plan is to leave at 3, but if it's not done, it's not done. And I got to be there. Right. So, the other one, I had to bite the bullet for about 2 years where I was running night work, and
Mm.
that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. At least in the trades, you're either making a differential where you're getting maybe 1.2 times the rate or time and a half, but from a superintendent perspective or a PM perspective, you get paid the same. Doesn't matter, right? And you have to answer the phone during the day. When when everybody else is working normal hours. So, um, I think the beautiful thing is that if you're willing to kind of bite the bullet and do that stuff when you're young and when you're single, it will open up opportunities for you. You could, you could probably quit and start your own little contracting business right now because of the skill set you have. Maybe PM isn't the role. I think a lot of people think they want to be a project manager and then they realize the headache and then they're like, put me back in the field. My uncle did that. He was running a service division as a pipe fitter and he's like, you know what, just make me a foreman in the field, but don't give me a
Yeah.
crew either. Just give me the one man jobs that I don't have to talk to anybody. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't even want to deal with anybody, but there's a role for that. You could also be a
Yeah.
superintendent or a road super where you're not in the office, but you're not in the field. You're kind of driving around with the truck. You get to be a little more blunt and like, where your mouth and you're telling people the truth is a lot more, which is what you said.
Yeah. Yeah. They might not like to hear it, but sometimes I just accidentally let it fly.
Yeah. And listen, I always tell people like my favorite supers that I've ever worked with when I was a PM or even now as an executive are the ones you got to kind of muzzle.
Yeah.
Right? Like, shut up. Or I'll even say before the meeting, like, you are not to talk until I tell you to talk.
Dude, I've gotten that before. I've gotten
Yeah.
that. My buddy Steve, when we go out of town together, he's like, I will talk. You just be busy somewhere. I'll go handle the stuff.
Yeah.
I know that you're frustrated with this, that, and the other. I got it.
Now
He's like,
I
oh,
also
all
have
right.
clients that are like, I want to hear it from, I want to hear
Yeah.
it from him. They don't want to hear it from me. They're like, because they
Yeah.
know he'll tell the truth. So there's a time for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the point being is like whatever your personality's like, whatever you want to do, especially with the experience that you have now and the skill set that you have. I mean, there's so many paths that you could take, and even if you end up choosing the wrong one, I did the PM thing. This sucks. I want to go back to the field, or I want to do the road super thing, or I want to go start my own business. The opportunities are there.
Yeah.
So.
There's plenty of options. So
So we're coming up on time. We're at an hour now. I always like to give the floor, to anybody if there's something you were hoping that we talk about, or any kind of general advice that you'd have to close. The floor is yours.
yeah, I don't know about anything specific to talk about, but I'd just like to put this out there to anybody who's listening that doesn't know what they want to do as far as a career. I don't personally care whether it's union or non-union. You got to put food on the table, and each of them has pros and cons. For me, union was the move because that's my family. That's just kind of what I fell into. Um, but I would say don't feel obligated to go to college if you don't think that that's your route, and don't feel obligated to go to a trade just because somebody said trade school is an option. Be I don't know how to word this right, but do what you think's gonna be best for you, and don't just go with whatever the status quo says. Like, don't just because all your friends are going to college. Yeah, it'd be fun to go party with them, but is it worth wasting 4 years of money to go get drunk the whole time? Because I mean, let's be honest. That's what a lot of us did when we went to school. Not everybody, but
A
that's
lot of
part
my
of the
friends in the a lot
culture.
of my friends in the trades would come visit me at college, and they'd have all the
Yeah.
money to do all they wanted, all the partying that they
Wow.
wanted. So
Right. Right.
there was
But
some of my college friends were surprised that, oh, you don't go here? You're a demo guy? What?
yeah. No, I don't go here. Buy another bucket. I got it.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, just don't feel like you're stuck choosing union or non-union or choosing college or trade school. Find something that fits you and do it, because there's a billion different options as far as work goes. Whether it is go to college for 4 years and end up with a business degree and put yourself in the situation that you're in right now, put yourself in a leadership role and in a top company. Maybe that is the move. Maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe you like wrenching on cars, dude. Start start doing something in the driveway. It doesn't matter. Just don't feel obligated to follow the status quo. Find something that fits you and just go that route.
We talked about it in the first attempt to do this, but you didn't pay attention
Yeah.
to the people around you when you were
Yeah.
younger, right? Even though the answer was right there. So,
Yeah.
look at some of the dads, some of the moms, whoever it is around you. What do they have? What are they able to do? What cars do they have? What is their life like? And be a little inquisitive, right? Like you have a very good point. That was very good advice. But there's so many examples of what could be accomplished and what life could look like around you.
Mm-hmm.
Take some interest in it.
Yep.
There's a lot of evidence to what your life could look like just by the people that are around you in your environment. And hopefully, if you don't have any good examples, there are a lot of people out there that are in the projects or in a low income neighborhood or whatever. That's what this podcast is here for, just to give you a few more perspectives. So, Patrick, man, I appreciate you coming on. Very valuable for all those who are still listening. We very much appreciate your time, especially since you're traveling and you're working all weekend and you're tired. And like you said, your bed feels good. So you're at your own house.
Oh
So
yeah.
we appreciate you coming on. And for
Absolutely.
anybody still listening, you can catch this on Spotify, YouTube. You can catch me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at The Construction Mentor. This is the Construction Mentor Podcast, and this is what we're here to do. So I appreciate everybody, and we'll see you next time.